All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all feeling today? Good to see you. We are live on Rockfin, YouTube, and on Callin. Callin is a pretty cool podcast app where you can call into the show. And all right. Anyways, there's lots to talk about, as usual. And got sent some pretty interesting articles from several people. But this is, alarming. I saw this, but I don't know if there's a way... I don't know if there's a way to verify. I tried to see if I could verify some excess deaths or something in the area. But this is from extreme temps. More and more insane heat in China. Yesterday, Yunnan was with a 100%, that was a typo, deadly humid heat. 100% deadly humid heat at Yunnan. Dongchuan broke its monthly record. Taoyuan was with 39.4 C and 60% of humidity with a heat index of more than, are you listening to this? 60 C. Dang it. I mean, extreme, temps of the world is a site that, follows these things very, very closely. I don't know what good it would do them to report false information or falsify these records or try to, hype something that wasn't actually happening. It wouldn't. Their entire channel is extreme temperatures of the world, right? So, if you're... but this is wild, though. So heat index is 60%. 60 C, which is 140. So the heat index, or feels like, would be something like 140. And this is a 100% deadly wet bulb temperature. Now, I don't know, if people just survive this, or if they, if this just happened for a little while and people were knocked out. Did everybody have AC? Did people die from this? I can't really confirm. But the fact that we have a 140 temperature heat index is pretty alarming, is what I would say. Anyways, I'm just reading through some of these comments here. So that is really wild. And look at the very warm temperatures towards the north. Warm here, 39.4 C, but look at up all the way up here, 39.6 C. All the way up here, 38.5, 38.8. Very, very warm all across China. That's pretty unbelievable. So I don't know how people are surviving this. I don't know really what's going on as far as like on the ground. How people there are faring in this situation, I don't know. I don't know if you'd get real information about what was actually happening if people were succumbing to this heat. I don't know. I don't know how we can confirm, what the fallout from this is, but we'll see. But dang. And are we going to see more of these 140 degree feels like or total heat index temperatures this summer? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, "Oh yeah, well, oh yeah." I mean, that is really, really wild. Okay, so we talk a lot. I know it's kind of hard to just move on from 140 heat index, Anyways, I mean, that's, should give one pause right there, I think. But let's look at this, because I talk a lot on this show about censorship, about the negating of certain ideas by one side or the other, the insistence that your side is right, and maybe based on not so good information, or the thought that maybe the other side should be silenced, censored. That censorship is a good thing because the misinformation is so dangerous. And it is to an extent, but it can be. Misinformation can be dangerous, but the insistence that one particular viewpoint of information is absolutely 100% correct and the other side is 100% wrong. Well, who judges what the misinformation is? So is what it boils down to. Who is the arbiter of truth? And so, though misinformation can be damaging, what's even more damaging is misinformation passed off as 100%, ironclad because the authority said so, truth, right? So I actually think it's and a lot of people would agree with me that the censoring of information is probably more damaging than the misinformation for, because of your safety, because safety or whatever. Do I think misinformation is bad and harmful and all that? Sure. But I still agree with the rights of people to say what they need to say, misinformation or not. And the way you counter it is not by censoring. The way you counter it is by correct information and actually being open and transparent. Because the more open and transparent you can be about the information that you're presenting, and not insisting that I'm right and you're wrong. Or even the insistence that you're right and somebody else is wrong, that's perfectly fine. But actually, going to the extent that maybe some people should be silenced because this misinformation is so dangerous. That is a point at which you cross, particular legal and moral, ethical lines that traditionally people were against crossing. But we're okay with that now. We're all okay with it. Because safety and stuff. The bad people might say the bad things, and then that would be bad for everybody, and it would give everybody bad ideas, and then the world would be such a terrible place because it's so, wonderful and works like functions like a clock at the moment, right? There's so much justice and there's so much equity, and the bad people go to jail, and the corrupt people go to jail, and they get voted out of office, and the good hardworking people, they get love and consideration and help along the way to be better people, and right, right, because the world already works on just such an equal, there's so much equal footing here. And those, and certainly the people that are in charge or in power are all very fine, upstanding, just, operating within the precautionary principle, and they just want what's right for people, and they really don't like when people are harmed by misinformation, and that your safety is of the highest importance. And we're just acting in your best interest, and golly gee. And if you believe that, I just purchased an incredible piece of property. It's an island. Yes, that's right. It's an island. It's my very own island. I own it. And I would like to sell it to you for peanuts. Anyways. But this is a very, really, I really respect Jem Bendell and where he's coming from. And there's a lot of people that are in the climate change aware camp that are beginning to see, that, though climate change be real, what the people in charge tell us about climate change may not be real, or maybe there may be nefarious intentions behind it. So they're intelligent people, and they're understanding how to dissect, use discernment, to slice and dice a little bit, to use nuance, to understand that even though the people in charge are saying, well, climate change certainly is bad and we've got to do something about it, to understand that they probably, well, A, don't care about doing anything about it, B, might not have your best interest at heart, C, are following some science over here, but maybe not science over here. So it's a good question when people tell you that it's just science and just believe the scientists. And if you're not a scientist, then shut up. They're beginning to discern that the people that want to trust the science down your throat are probably not operating completely scientifically all the time, right? But anyways, this is a really good post, and this is a really great article that I want to read from Children's Health Defense, which is RFK Jr.'s organization. This is a very eye-opening article. And again, if you argue for the censorship of someone else, if you argue for the censorship of climate deniers, you are arguing for your own censorship. So be very, very careful when you're like, yeah, kick those guys out of here. Surely a lot of those climate deniers, you think they're just stupid. A lot of those climate deniers could be paid trolls of the fossil fuel industry, which is just an arm of the U.S. government or whatever government, just like the military and industrial complex is just an arm of the government. Right? You want to kick them off because they're stupid and they might be misleading people. But what you don't understand is, you may or may not be able to kick them off because they're actually operatives. They want you to be confused. Anyways, whatever. I'm getting off on a tangent. Social media fact checkers step into subjective debates with the pretense of objectivity to steer the conversation towards solutions preferred by the big corporations and billionaires who fund them. As long as disagreement is labeled misinformation, democratic debate is impossible. Right. I disagree. And we're going to call that misinformation, and we actually can't have a debate. And, you know, you may feel like, well, there's no debate about climate change. The science is settled. Fine. That still doesn't mean that you get, that you're 100% correct all the time about everything, every single thing you think. That's a dangerous place to be in. Well, I believe in this thing that is 100% locked in. That is the most dangerous. If you ever think that about anything in your life, you're about ready to run into a brick wall at full speed. So I suggest, just as a personal suggestion from me to you, that if you're ever in a position where you think like, oh, I got this, and I'm so locked into this, I'm so right, I'm so correct, there's, no way. And on top of that, because I'm so correct on this, everything else I think is pretty brilliant too. That you don't ever want to be in that position in your life. Even if somebody's paying you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year for all your correctness and your righteousness, yeah, not a good place to be, actually, in my humble opinion. That's probably a place where you're actually in a position, if not already, to harm a lot of people, including yourself. But let's read this article, because this is a very eye-opening article, and there's going to be some people in here that you recognize, and you're going to go, oh, really? Big tech is ramping up censorship of the climate solutions debate. Social media climate misinformation policies are targeting a wide range of people on both the right and the left who dispute official narratives about climate solutions preferred by the government and its powerful corporate backers. In May, LinkedIn suspended the account of a Republican presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy. Have you guys been watching him at all? I don't know. I watched a couple videos, and I was like, I don't know what this dude is talking about. But anyways, maybe some people like him. After he posted several climate-related campaign messages. In one message, Ramaswamy asserted that fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. That's actually a true statement. I mean, prosperity as we think of it. Not prosperity as in continuing to live on the planet Earth. Maybe not in that way, but prosperity is where we've grown accustomed to it. That's a true statement. And in another, he wrote that if adherents of the climate religion really cared about the climate, they'd be worried about, say, shifting oil production to places like the U.S. and China. He goes on to say, big tech election interference has begun. It just started now? That's hilarious. I wondered if anybody, does anybody tap this dude on the shoulder and say like, I think that was a while ago. LinkedIn, owned by Microsoft, backtracked under pressure and reinstated his account. But the episode highlighted the ways in which social media companies are expanding their content moderation or climate misinformation with potentially far-reaching consequences across the political spectrum. In another incursion into the presidential race, YouTube attached a context note to a June 5th interview of Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in which he discussed his views about climate change with Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson. YouTube's context note included a definition of climate change from the United Nations and linked to a page on the UN website. A video is no longer available and now leads to a community guidelines warning. That sucks. In April, TikTok announced we will begin to ramp up enforcement of a new climate change misinformation policy, which removes climate change misinformation that undermines well-established scientific consensus, such as content denying the existence of climate change or the factors that contribute to it. TikTok's policy is similar to Facebook's, which over the last several years has censored prominent climate contrarians, often pejoratively referred to as deniers, Michael Shellenberger and Bjorn Lomborg. I've talked about Michael Shellenberger. Again, I've taken him to task. I've taken him to task about his books and his views on climate change. That doesn't mean I want him silenced. Like Ramaswamy, Schellenberger and Lomborg disputed aspects of the scientific consensus on climate change and argued for the continued use of fossil fuels and the expansion of nuclear energy. Lomborg has argued that partisan fact-checking pushes against alarmist climate narratives. Yet there are counter examples of people being censored on social media because they are raising the alarm. This is important. Raising the alarm about climate change and environmental degradation more loudly than representatives of the scientific consensus. This is what I've been saying for like years. And what I generally try to put out to people that might consider climate change a hoax or might be skeptical about the idea of climate change, this is basically what they're saying is, so they're saying, climate, it's not that climate change is a hoax. Climate change is way worse than they're telling us it is. That's the actual hoax. They're trying to, keep the discussion of climate change around a nice little if we just get this green technology going, and if we don't hit the guardrail of 1.5C, and if we don't, if we just do all these things, and we're within, we can save ourselves if we just ... What they're not telling you, the real conspiracy around climate change is that is way worse, and we're headed for a disaster in very short amount of time. That's the reality that they're trying to hide from people. So this is what they're saying in this. They are censoring people who are raising the alarm about climate change and environmental degradation more loudly. Right? Hey, this is really a serious problem. Oh no, Michael Mann. No, you're doomers. You're just like you're exactly the same as climate deniers. You're doomers, and you're like conspiracy theorists, and so your danger is too. Right? So they want to confine the conversation about climate change in this little very narrow pathway. And if you're over here on the right, and you don't believe it, get out of here. If you're on the left and you're like, hey, no, this is really a serious problem, and the solutions they're giving us, these renewable green, if we only buy a low efficiency stove, we'll solve climate change. If you say that's wrong, we'll censor you too. Social media companies under pressure from government authorities have been applying their climate misinformation policies not only against people who express doubt about climate change, but also against a wide range of people who question the climate solutions promoted by the government and its powerful corporate backers. This includes many people who do not fall into the denier camp at all. The large corporations, government entities, and political interests that have claimed the power to censor social media are using this power to manipulate the climate debate towards their preferred solutions and to denigrate alternative perspectives and approaches. Our solution is that everybody buys an electric car because we're going to outlaw gas-powered cars, and you're going to have to buy an electric car. You're going to have to. We won't sell the gas-powered stoves anymore. We won't allow you to barbecue or have a wood-fired stove anymore, anything like that. You're only going to be allowed to have these electronically controlled devices that are hooked up to our smart meters that run through your smartphone. which will be tightly controlled. And if you ask the question about where that energy is coming from for your electronically controlled, tightly controlled smart devices, we might censor you on that. Oh wait, but isn't all this energy coming from coal and gas? Hey. From censoring denial to censoring debate about solutions. Now it's not so much denying the problem. President Biden's first national climate advisor, Gina McCarthy, said in an interview last year with Axios for its virtual event, The Infodemic Age, what they, spreaders of alleged misinformation, are really targeting is our inability to accelerate the answers to climate. The technologies we need to moving forward, that is equally dangerous to denial because we have to move fast. So we have the answers. The only way is renewable energy. And if you have any questions about it, well, if you're trying to raise the alarm that this isn't the answer, well, we have answers. We have solutions, McCarthy said. We, and only we have the answers and nobody else. Referring primarily to solar energy and wind energy. The question is how quickly we can accelerate them. Clean energy is the solution. We have to get tighter with the enforcement of climate misinformation policy against people who cast doubt on these technologies and solutions. Wow. She said, we need the tech companies to really jump in to get tighter. The government has been working with tech companies and organizations in the censorship industrial complex that act as third-party fact checkers for social media. TikTok calls them safety partners. Safety partners. I'm feeling very unsafe. I need a safe space. I don't want to think about any ideas that are outside of my safe space. Please. Together, they have been shifting their focus from censorship of outright climate denial to censorship of debate and discussion about clean energy technologies and other climate solutions, as McCarthy described. The UN climate webpage that YouTube attached to the Peterson Kennedy interview in its community note, for example, says we face a huge challenge but already know many solutions. The fact is, however, that many people from various points of view have problems with the mainstream consensus about clean energy and other touted climate solutions. There's a great deal of controversy about whether these solutions actually work. See Planet of the Humans. Right? They were very concerned about the messaging of that movie. So much so that they took it off YouTube for a moment. And who benefits from these solutions, and who bears the cost? Although big oil has undoubtedly used its profits to shape the climate debate, it's not just the fossil fuel companies and recipients of their dark money who are critical of mainstream climate solutions, as McCarthy and other proponents of censorship contend. A wide range of people are now getting caught in the digital net of climate misinformation and censorship, including some environmentalists. Well, no duh. The following groups are among those experiencing social media censorship due to their criticism of officially sanctioned climate solutions and because of their advocacy for alternative approaches to climate and environmental issues. Listen to this. The massive $3 trillion push for solar and wind energy across the U.S. is causing a backlash in some communities where local citizens are unhappy with the immediate environmental impacts. Oh, well, and what they were saying is who they're going after are local citizens, conservationists, and environmental activists opposed to clean energy projects. All right, the backlash against clean energy is also growing among some who say that these giant industrial development projects are being built to the detriment of biodiversity. Tell me more. Wildlife habitat and healthy ecosystems. In December 2022, YouTube, listen to this, permanently deleted without warning or notice of suspension the channel of the group, you know them and love them, Protect Thacker Pass. which opposes the development of a large lithium mine in Nevada. 3 days later, YouTube restored the channel without explanation. Small conservation groups like Basin and Range Watch, a nonprofit that seek to protect the deserts of Nevada and California from industrial development, including wind and solar, reported that they were accused of being spreaders of misinformation by proponents of these energy projects. Citizens and local environmental activists who oppose offshore wind energy development in the New York, New Jersey area, due to the potential impacts on whales and the ocean environment, have been subjected to online censorship by Facebook and Instagram. This censorship was coordinated by the third-party fact-checker PolitiFact, operated by the Poynter Institute, one of the top 50 members of the censorship industrial complex. Media stories have used a broad brush to smear advocacy groups concerned about the effects of offshore wind development on whales and the marine environment, accusing them of being agents of fossil fuel dark money. Although some local organizations do appear to have accepted funding from the fossil fuel industry, the broad grassroots movement to protect the coastal environment from industrial development cannot be accurately described as a product of oil and gas dark money. The CEO of one offshore wind company, Atlantic Shores, wrote in an op-ed accusing groups opposed to his projects of spreading misinformation about the most viable solution we have for climate change. He refrained from accusing his opponents of being funded by fossil fuel dark money. Atlantic Shores is 50% owned by oil giant Shell. Yes. So the fossil fuel dark money is accusing people of accepting fossil fuel dark money. People that oppose them is accepting fuel from... Yeah, got it. Are you clear? I'm the psychopathic, insane narcissist accusing you of being a psychopathic, insane narcissist if you point out the things that I'm doing. Anyways. Oh, and so here's another group being targeted, doomers and environmentalists who advocate for systemic change. I think that would include Black Bear News, would it not? I haven't been subjected to any of these things yet, luckily. I think because I'm probably super tiny and I piss off so many people on the right and the left that everybody's confused. What are you all about there, Black Bear News? What are you really trying to say? Because I want you to be on one side of the debate on climate change and only that side. And if you're talking about other things, I'm really upset. And you're wrong anyways. Blah. And vice versa. People who like my coverage of other subjects like COVID and, whatever else. Why are you talking about climate change? That is a hoax, and it's so stupid. What are you like Klaus Schwab or something? It was just like, anyways, sorry. Sorry, not sorry. There's some people that actually think like that. And it's true. A subset of climate activists believes there's no officially sanctioned solutions, that no sanctioned solutions are capable of stopping climate change or bringing an end to environmental degradation. Hey, do y'all fall into that identification? These people are pejoratively referred to as doomers. Some of them prefer the tongue-in-cheek label doomsters. In recent years, the press, climate scientists, and mainstream climate activists have taken to bashing doomers with the same gust that they attack deniers. See Michael Mann. A typical headline in the Washington Post reads, "Why climate doomers are replacing climate deniers." You're just the same. Not at all, actually. In 2020, the Facebook group Positive Deep Adaptation, I think this is why Jem Bendell is reposting this, received a warning about an article it shared, written by an award-winning novelist, Jonathan Franzen, in The New Yorker. What if we stopped pretending? The climate apocalypse is coming. To prepare for it, we need to admit that we can't prevent it. Facebook's warning relied on a fact check by the site Climate Feedback. And in April of this year, Facebook censored a post by Jem Bendell, a professor of sustainability at the University of Cumbria in Carlisle, England, who had attempted to share an interview British GQ conducted with him. In the interview, Bendell discussed his view that mainstream climate policies are simply not working, and his belief that catastrophic disruptions to industrial consumer societies will occur due to climate change, combined with other environmental, economic, and social factors. Facebook hid the post with a message that said, "No one can see your post. We have these standards because we want everyone to feel safe." And I'm not feeling very safe today. This person is bad. I want him to go. Just stay off the social media there, bro. If you're feeling so vulnerable, maybe just do something. Go outside and look at butterflies or something. I don't know. Similarly, in May, TikTok took down a video by climate corruption journalist Rachel Donald, labeling it misinformation. In the video, Donald, who writes the climate newsletter Planet Critical, said, "It's the economy. It's the economy driving the climate crisis. It's how we organize ourselves." God dang it. Rachel Donald, I need to shake your hand and I need to have a conversation with you. Because she is literally parroting the exact same words I've said about 3,000 times on this channel. It's the economy, stupid. If you want to know what's making the climate crisis happen, it's the economy. If you want to stop the climate crisis, you actually have to stop the economy, or greatly. I don't know. You got to take it down, about 300%, or something like that. I don't know. I'm just speaking off the cuff. These are not real numbers. But it is the economy. It's the economy that's driving the climate crisis. It's how we organize ourselves. It's exploitation and extractivism and all this kind of stuff. TikTok did not offer a specific reason for labeling the video misinformation. By the way, I'm just going to stop right here. Anybody who likes this channel on YouTube, you better get your butt over to Rockfin. You don't even have to make an account to watch my videos, but it would be helpful if you made an account. It'd be even more helpful if you subscribed and endorsed me on Rockfin. That would support my channel. I suggest you do that. You do that sooner than later. I'm serious about this because, if YouTube continues the way it's going, there's not going to be a YouTube for me to be on. Or there's not going to be a Black Bear News on YouTube for me to be on. I'm just saying. Would I prefer to be on YouTube? Would I prefer to be able to say the things, everything I want to say and give you guys content every day? I would love to do that. I may not be able to do that, and it wouldn't be my call. So if you want to follow the show, go to Colin or go to Rockfin for now. And get familiar and get used to watching the show there, because it's going to be, that's going to be eventually where we're going to be, probably. Farmers are also being targeted. I know this is taking up the whole show. It's all good. There's so much to cover, but I think this is important. This is a very, very important point. Extremely important. Like, every aspect of this article, there are so many things that are being said here. It's really, this is an important thing to talk about. When it comes to food and agriculture, the climate movement is dominated by eco-modernists who believe genetically modified plants, factory-made foods, synthetic meats, and other industrial food technologies are solutions to climate change. We've got to start making food in vats with microbes. We're going to grow our food in laboratories. I mean, that may be the only way we can grow food eventually. But until then, I think a lot of people are saying, like, well, no, let's not do that. Those solutions might not be so great for us. A smaller contingent of environmentalists believe we need small-scale farming using regenerative and agroecological methods instead of the more industrial food technologies. Yes. This contingent and the populist small farmer movement they are aligned with have come under the scrutiny of the climate misinformation censors. Protests by Dutch farmers galvanized worldwide opposition to onerous environmental policies that may end in the expropriation of thousands of farmers' land. Dutch farmers received the support of some prominent ecological activists like Dr. Vandana Shiva, who believe in the small farm approach. Yet the popular media, famous environmentalists like George Monbiot, and fact-checking organizations portray the Dutch farming protest as far right. George Monbiot. That guy is sus, let me tell you. I don't really want to hear anything George Monbiot has to say, like, ever again. Very sus. Unless he, maybe he might turn around. I don't know. Anyways, he describes the Dutch farmer protest as far-right movement that spreads conspiracy theories and misinformation. Small farmers around the world who dispute the notion that their pasture-raised, grass-fed cattle are a significant cause of climate change have been censored by Facebook. In one example, farmers posted memes stating that cows are not the problem compared to the private jet lifestyle of billionaire elites Bill Gates. Well, yes. Facebook attached a fact check to these memes. Debunked. Yes, cows are the problem when it comes to cutting greenhouse gas emissions. This example illustrates how the process of fact-checking a subjective political debate, are cows or private jets the problem, benefits the elites who fund the fact-checking organizations. Fact-checkers give credence to eco-modernist solutions pushed by billionaires like Gates, who fund several of the biggest organizations in the censorship industrial complex. Replacing cattle with synthetic beef and industrially produced plant-based foods, lines of business Gates is invested in, are treated as promising solutions. Sorry, we're almost done with this article. Hold on one second. We're almost done with this article, but real quick, I'm going to take a very quick break here. And the best, absolutely best possible ways to support this show are at PayPal, paypal.me/Kevin Sandblum, Venmo at Kevin Sandblum, Cash App at Red Llama Music, and buymeacoffee.com/Blackburn News. And I thank everyone who does support the show. Y'all are great. You know who you are. I mean, it's pretty much everybody who watches the show. Very supportive. And I thank you all for hanging out with me every day while we talk about these important problems, issues, whatnot. And where I try to do various things. Sometimes some days are better than others. All right. Let me check this one more thing. Just checking all the platforms out. See if I've gotten any tips or comments so far. We'll check them again later. All right. Let's go back. Let's finish this. Let's see. Populist counter proposals eliminating private jets or giving small farmers resources to transition to more ecologically friendly methods are not taken seriously by the fact checkers. This is so, even though a compelling argument can be made that small farmers are better able than large industrial producers to feed the world using regenerative agroecological methods. I happen to support that idea. The fact checkers make no distinction, right? And what is it that's really seems to be the thing that's hurting the planet more than anything, or is large industrial farming, or conglomerates? The fact checkers make no distinction between industrially raised cattle and those raised by small farmers using more holistic grazing methods. All are lumped together, even though this makes little ecological sense. As Shiva observed, in order to erase the last remaining small farmers, corporate-sponsored narratives are now pushing for dualistic narratives around plant versus animal instead of addressing the larger crisis of how current industrial practices are destroying Earth's ecosystems. Censorship of debate prevents alternative approaches from emerging. The power to censor, which was originally justified as being necessary to silence those who denied the existence of climate change, is increasingly being used to silence people who disagree with official climate solutions. As long as disagreement is labeled misinformation, democratic debate is impossible. Political debates are inherently subjective to a certain extent. Should we attempt to replace oil and gas with clean energy across the entire economy? Is green growth possible? We've talked about the math and the physics behind that. How do we ensure that climate policies respect civil liberties? Is the future of food to be found on big industrial farms or small family farms, which is a higher priority problem, grass-fed cows or private jets? These questions involve the weighing of pros and cons, the prioritizing of values and decisions about who will bear the costs and burdens. They are not simply questions of science or math. Yet the social media fact checkers step into these subjective debates with the pretense of objectivity to steer the conversation towards solutions preferred by the big corporations and billionaires who fund them. For every hot button climate solution, the censorship industrial complex churns out fact checks that are biased in favor of their funders. Biased claims can often be found on the other side of these debates too. The only way to make sense of these competing claims is through an open, democratic process. I agree. Give people the information, allow them to make choices on actual, real science and data. The censorship battle is not about deniers versus science, as many seem to believe. The conflict is primarily about who gets to decide on the solutions: citizens engaged in free and open discussion, or the political and economic forces that have claimed the power to censor. In democratic societies, solutions are supposed to be up for debate. Increasingly, they are not. I thought that was a pretty excellent article and really outlined, the issue of who gets to talk about what, who gets to opine about what. You're right. And this is important. This is an important subject to consider and to talk about now, because once you lose the ability to actually have these discussions, then we are really super, super screwed. Ultimately. So if you don't agree with somebody on, masks or COVID or something, really seriously take a step back before you wish, or deniers, before you wish these people into the cornfield. Take a step back, because you are most likely wishing yourself into the cornfield as well, because that's where it's going to go. And sometimes that happens like immediately. Freedom is not a right-wing talking point. Freedom is an ideal that people really cherish. So when you make, or free speech is not a right-wing talking point. If you lose the ability to protect that, to have that, you're losing a lot. In the same vein, this is very interesting. Thank you, Nick Oliver, for sending me these as well. Huge news in the Missouri versus Biden case. This is a case about censorship. A federal judge has told the federal government to stop using social media companies to censor ideas it doesn't like. A federal judge has told the federal government. The Biden administration war on free speech just took a hit. This is from the Washington Post. Wow. This is pretty big. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this because the Washington Post, of course, wants me to subscribe to them. And I'll never subscribe. Never. But we could probably read this somewhere else. How about The Verge? U.S. judge blocks Biden officials from contacting social media sites. Wow. I say wow again. This is pretty big. Lawsuit filed by AGs for Louisiana and Missouri claims the federal government is censoring conservative viewpoints in violation of the First Amendment. That would be a violation. It would be illegal. You may not like conservative viewpoints. That's still illegal. A U.S. federal judge ruled that a slew of Biden administration officials are prohibited from contacting social media companies about moderating posts protected by the First Amendment. Slow clap. Sorry, that was a fast clap. This is a slow clap. Judge Terry A. Doughty. I doubt he even knew what he was talking about. Sorry, can't help it. Wrote in a 155-page memorandum ruling that he believes the plaintiffs are likely to prove that the federal government officials are targeting and suppressing millions of protected free speech postings by American citizens. Who are the plaintiffs? Hold on one second. Who are the plaintiffs? Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. You may be familiar with these people. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, Martin Koldorf, Aaron Kheriaty, and Health Freedom LA. I don't know if they're all the plaintiffs, but there are some of the plaintiffs listed here. So in the historic ruling, Judge Doughty, it said that they are likely to succeed with their claim that the federal government involved in the federal government's involvement in social media censorship violated their First Amendment rights. The judge noted that during the COVID pandemic, the government seems to have assumed a role similar to the Orwellian Ministry of Truth. It's unusual for a court to issue a decision on a federal holiday. I suspect Judge Doughty sought to make a point. Let's go back to this article. Anyways, Doughty says the plaintiffs are likely to succeed on the merits in establishing that the government has used its power to silence the opposition to COVID-19 vaccines, opposition to COVID-19 masking and lockdowns, opposition to the lab leak theory of COVID-19, opposition to the validity of the 2020 election. Say what? This is a federal case. I don't know. I'm just reporting the news here. Opposition to President Biden's policies, statements that the Hunter Biden laptop story was true, and opposition to policies of the government officials in power. All were suppressed. It is quite telling that each example or category of suppressed speech was conservative in nature. Was it? I mean, maybe. What they're calling conservative, I actually would dispute that. I don't. These are not all conservative views. Sorry. This targeted suppression of conservative ideas is a perfect example of viewpoint discrimination of political speech. American citizens have the right to engage in free debate about the significant issues affecting the country. As the Washington Post reports, Republican attorneys general in Louisiana, Missouri, suing President Joe Biden, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the CDC, the Department of Homeland Security, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, claim that starting in 2017, Starting in 2017, 4 years before Biden was president, officials within the government began laying the groundwork for a systemic and systematic campaign to control speech on social media. The New York Times cites Jamil Jaffer, the executive director of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, responding to the ruling, saying it can't be that the government violates the First Amendment simply by engaging with the platforms about their content moderation decisions and policies. If that's what the court is saying here, it's a pretty radical proposition that isn't supported by the case law, blah, blah, blah. The New York Times also has a statement from an unnamed White House official saying our consistent view remains that social media platforms have a critical responsibility. They're responsible for this misinformation to take account of the effects that their platforms are having on the American people. Oh my God, they're scrambling their brains. They won't be able to think right with all this misinformation, but make independent choices about the information they present. And notes that the Justice Department is reviewing the ruling while evaluating the next steps. The injunction bars people like DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agent leader Jen Easterly, and FBI Foreign Influence Task Force leader Laura Demlow, as well as employees of those agencies and several others, from contacting, working with, or asking social media companies about posts protected by the First Amendment. That's awesome. I'm sorry if that offends you, but that is super awesome. I think that's great. These people should be blocked. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not reading any of the chats. Well, I will. I was into reading these articles, and I apologize. I will try to get to a few comments at the end of the show. Anyways, exceptions listed include posts about criminal activity or criminal conspiracies, national security threats, threats to election security, permissible public government speech promoting government policies or views on public concern, public safety threats, efforts to detect, prevent, or mitigate malicious cyber activity. Those named in the suit are also barred from working with academic groups. Interesting. That focus on social media like the Election Integrity Partnership, the Virality Project, and the Stanford Internet Observatory. Wow. That's pretty big news. Pretty big news. Man, there's so much more I wanted to cover today, but those few things. Okay. Okay. I mean, I'd say that's pretty big news. I have more to say about all of this. Although we are nearing the end of my time today. So we may have to come back tomorrow to further this discussion. Yeah, I know. I wanted to talk about that too as well. I did see that post. Looks like they might be trying to make something happen in Zaporizhia. Cross fingers. Well, I don't know. I don't. Was it you, Obsolete, that sent me this about Kevin Blanch? I think you did. I did see this. I don't know. I mean, I don't want this to be true. It might very well be true. It is July 5th at the moment. All right. Well, hold on. What is this? Where is this from, though? Obsolete. This first post. I am a lurker. Is this like a Reddit post? They are trying to do this thing where they're like, well, if, and I talked about this. I talked about this like a week or two ago, that they're trying to, say, well, like if something happens to a nuclear plant, then that will be used as an excuse to like instigate the use of nuclear weapons against Russia, right? And so I said, I think that's a very bad thing. It's a very, very, very dangerous policy to put out there. Because, I mean, look at all the things that have happened that have been blamed on Russia already, right? They blew up the Nord Stream. They blew up the bridge and right, and right, when those things happen, immediately people were like, "Are you sure?" And then as time goes on, information comes out, and they're like, "Are you sure?" Anyways, so they're kind of trying to set people up for the same thing in Zaporizhia. I think so. I don't know if that's, but we don't know. Nothing as yet has happened. Somebody's in this post. I don't know who this is saying that there's going to be an attack on Zaporizhia, and that will be used as an excuse to use some. I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, they're. I mean, we're in a precarious situation because there's a war going on with a nuclear power, or between two nuclear powers, if you want to just be truthful about it. And we don't know, any given day might be the day it pops off. I don't know. And the longer this war drags on, and the more the conflict escalates, the more we raise the possibility of said, who knows what, pops off. But it does look like they're trying to ramp up this idea that it does look like they're trying to ramp up the idea that there's going to be an attack on this plant. So that's not good. That's not good. Ukraine claims Russia planning massive incident at a nuclear site. Ukraine preparing for nuclear explosion as Russian troops ordered to leave Zaporizhia. Putin's troops suffering key weaknesses as Moscow hit by drone attack. Ukraine holds disaster drills amid fears Russia could sabotage nuclear, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on. They really are trying to push this idea out there. I don't. Just, All right. Thank you guys for. Oh, I was about to wrap up the show, William. But how you doing? I'll take a call from William for a sec. Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to take the call. How's it going?
Did you hear me okay, Kev?
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I know you're ready to wrap it up. Here's my perspective on things. Albert Pike, the Confederate Freemason, you know who I'm talking about? Who talked about there'll be 3 world wars. He You got that all lined up.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Is it to scare people into compliance? Is it part of the whole propaganda campaign? We had the two, but we know how they were financed. Smedley Butler was a racket. You know, we talked about this. So it's all controlled.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The question being, are they that evil? That's what it comes down to really destroy the vast members of humanity so they can have what's left for themselves after they come out of their bunkers. I don't know. I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? Like, seriously, anyone who believes that a nuclear cataclysm will be survivable or controlled on some level is insane, right? You know, objectively. Right?
Well, and it seems like there's people in places of power that actually believe that's true, though.
Maybe for them, if they go deep enough in their bunkers for long enough time, they can emerge out with some technology to make
right.
to then terraform the earth to make it
right. They believe they can come out and it won't be so bad. We can survive down there for a few whatever certain amount of time, and we'll be. But that's a big gamble, and I think on some maybe very deep instinctual level that everybody involved in making that kind of decision understands what a gamble it is, like truly understands. Well, like we think this could be okay, but do we really want to press the big red shiny candy like button?
Right, exactly. And then you can go, how far out do you go? They're talking about UFO sightings now like they're real finally. And so how far down the rabbit hole do you go, or into the stratosphere? You see what I'm saying? Like, are we really controlled, like in Rod Serling? I'm thinking of the episode in Twilight Zone, the cookbook episode, Serving Man. Like, who's really running the show? How far did we go into the Twilight Zone?
Exactly.
You know where I'm going with that, right? Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah. But to wonder, though, don't you, when you see how absolutely insane
it is.
They appear to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, along those lines, East Palestine, there's been a couple of hearings about recently. Well, now, Governor, was it DeWine? Is that his name? He just is, he's putting forth 5 months later, the FEMA declaration of an emergency, wherever the heck it is. Let me go back. If you go into scroll down, because we've been chatting a lot, obsolete optics tonight. But if you go down. Now, according to status quo, DeWine is putting in this, FEMA request.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, now. Right. But then Norfolk Southern, there's another recent one that just come up today, status quo, where they're trying to spread the liability around, of course, blaming, the rail car carriers, the chemical owner is Oxy, vinyl chloride or something. They're trying to spread the liability around, of course. That's what they'll do. But a couple recent interesting videos come out of status quo. I thought you might be interested in.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll check in. Actually, follow them on Rockfin. So I'll check in with them and see. Check out a couple of their videos.
Yeah, great.
They have been doing good work on this. They do pretty good work on this particular.
I mean, they're unbeatable when it comes to Flint and this, but then he just goes off the rails, like people like RFK Jr. is a nut job, and anti-vaxxers are nut job. I'm like, what?
It's that old old-fashioned. It's that old-fashioned psyop, man. It's pretty effective.
It's strange.
Yeah, it is strange. Anyway. And that's my, when I was talking about George Monbiot earlier, that's my problem with George Monbiot is that I do enjoy, some of the work he's done on climate change over the years. He's written some great stuff, but I mean, he's just gone complete, I don't know what you call it, blue MAGA or whatever on other things. I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I can't. It's hard to take people seriously like that who can't see, who can see one particular ruse but can't see the other ones very well. It's like okay.
It's weird, isn't it? Like that fellow I'm not familiar with. I think the issue for Jordan is his wife got very sick from what he believes is coronavirus, but it could be just for what we talked about, just another variant of the flu. And
But
I
you
don't
don't-
know if she was given what. I mean, remdesivir will kill anybody. So I don't know what happened, but there's something that has him believing that personally touched his life. And that's part of the whole medical malpractice psyop, though. It's hard to de-entangle that. You know what I mean? If it's affected someone you love, you know what I mean? And how do you unravel that one?
I don't know.
I don't know.
And that's well, I don't think. I think that you can have both things be true once, right? Somebody can get COVID and get sick or very sick or be affected, negatively. But that doesn't necessarily mean, that's how I guess that's how they get you, right? Like, oh, I got really sick, so I'm gonna just everything else. And then if you throw in the idea that maybe it came from, some tinkering on a workbench in a lab, right? Like I would be incensed by that, if somebody I love got very, very sick and it wasn't a thing that just happened between a bat and a pangolin, but this happened between, two scientists standing together working on a particular, right, some gene splicing. Like I would be incensed by that, but I don't know if whatever works to put the blinders on, it seems to be effective.
Yeah, unfortunately. Dr. Peter McCullough testified recently, apparently, in Pennsylvania in the beginning of the month, but also recently in another, I think a lot appears to be happening in the European Union as far as testimony in their parliaments, but nothing here.
Right.
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 Surprise, surprise. I mean,
yeah.
How long did they...
Yeah. Well, hey, man. Let's cover some of that tomorrow. I'm gonna go.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. Oops.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm still on the tube, and I'm gonna sign off now. But I'll bring back some of there's some of that stuff I want to talk about, but I just don't have time today.
Thanks, Kev.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thanks, William. Peace. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific Daylight. And until next time, peace.